Welcome in to another edition of the Section YY podcast. I'm Negative Niece, joined by a now, I don't know, do I want to call you broke or broken? Probably just broke, I guess. You're not broken.
No, I am broken because the Eagles made the Super Bowl as well.
Mm. Very quickly, as a Cowboys fan, how did it feel to see two NFC East teams playing for the NFC heavyweight title?
All I know is pain.
Yes.
That's all I know. At least the Redskins are fun. They're fun.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, I'll give Dan Quinn a little bit of credit, because he was with us for a few years. But I hate the Eagles. And I hate the Chiefs. So I'm a game time decision to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I don't know that I'm going to pay attention to it, but definitely will watch it. Probably. Well, at least have it on.
I'm at least going to tune in for halftime from my boy Kendrick. That's it. That's all I got.
Sad.
Yeah,
Sad.
yeah, it's extremely sad. I thought this was Josh Allen's turn.
We Most of America was hoping that, but maybe next year. There's always next year. I'm a Cubs fan. That's what we used to say all the time. Maybe next year.
I mean, nobody expected a franchise like the Bills to lose four important games in the playoffs in a row, right?
Nope. Never saw that before.
Nope.
Never saw that coming. Um, all right. We were going to talk about a wide-ranging set of topics. We'll save those for possibly, hopefully, next week when there's a gap in sports action. No NFL next week, so we'll save those topics for next show, Harbin. For the sake of time here, we're going to talk Tennessee basketball. They had a pretty big week, a couple big games, and we'll break all of that down and we'll look ahead to next week's action on the hardwood. But I know a couple things here. Thank you to our partners, our sponsors, Andrew's Physical Therapy. Um, I think there might be some Tennessee and Auburn players that might need to go visit those guys for some rehab after that physical outing of a basketball game that almost looked like a football game at different points. I think some of those guys need to go to either Blaine or Strawberry Plains to visit Mike and Adam.
Yeah, yeah. That was. If you thought football season was over last week, you're wrong. Football season continued in the state of Alabama this weekend.
I thought Friday night I was helping Reagan move some furniture and I was having to take some of it apart and I had a little issue with my knee that I had surgery on probably about 12, let's see, was that 13 years ago now. So but it's better. I think it's better now. I'm kind of taking it easy on it. Just taking not doing anything too crazy with it, but had a little freak out moment Friday night. Thought I was like, I saw my life flash before my eyes of going back to either Blaine or Strawberry Plains Andrews physical therapy to have some rehab done. But I think I'm good now. So don't worry, Adam or Mike. I don't think I'll have to come see you. So, anyways, if you do need some rehab from surgery or got some ailments going on with you, go see either Adam or Mike and all his folks and their folks at Andrew Physical Therapy. They've got a location, like I mentioned, in Strawberry Plains and one in beautiful Blaine, Tennessee, at the footsteps of Clinch Mountain and the WIMZ Tower. So if you go to the one in Blaine, go to the WIMZ Tower and go about a mile and a half past it. It was once the tallest structure in the world for a few days back in the 60s. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. All right, Harbin, Tennessee basketball. We had a couple, some might say I think they were two pretty big matchups this week, especially the one on Saturday night against the number one ranked Auburn Tigers. But I don't want to forget about the matchup we had on Tuesday night against the number 14 ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs. A very good program under Chris Jans. They've become I don't want to say a threat to win the SEC every year because they're really not, but they're a very solid program, and they're not an easy win like they used to be over the past several years. But Tennessee took care of them. Honestly, the score it was 68-56, but honestly Tennessee, the score doesn't, I mean, it makes it look a lot closer than it really honestly was. Tennessee dominated, in my opinion, Mississippi State that night. Chaz Lanier had 23 points. He got a stroke back at least for one night. He was 5 of 12 from 3-point range. Um, Tennessee just played really well, I think, on both ends of the court. They suffocated Mississippi State on the defensive end. They dominated the glass. I mean, they did everything that Mississippi State kind of wants to do. And it was a very good win for Tennessee. Tennessee moves to 11-0 at home very quickly. Harbin, before we move on to the main event, I just think this was a people might not think it, but this was a really big win for Tennessee. I know it's a home game, but Mississippi State, it's a quad one win. Mississippi State's highly rated in the human polls. They're pretty highly rated in analytical polls. This is a good basketball team, and I don't think people should sleep on this win at home.
Not at all. It was we jumped out on 'em early and kind of slacked off in the second half. Like you said, the final score was a little bit closer than what this game indicated, but it was kind of domination for 40 minutes. We played well, like you said. Chaz Lanier got out of his slump for the 2 or 3 games previous to this. We got some help from Jemai Mashak, who had one of his better offensive performances. I believe he was 4 of 6 from the field, hit both of his 3 pointers. One of the 3 Vols in double figures that evening, along with Jordan Gainey. It was a good team win. I believe Akpara had 12 or 13 rebounds. It was just a solid victory. I believe we were favored by 8.5 in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of did what you had to do. Anytime you win by 12 against the currently 14th ranked team in the country, it's a good night. And honestly, I think we take for granted how good this team is at home.
Yeah.
Honestly,
No, we do.
because we've gotten to the point where if we lose a game at home, we're like, well, what's wrong? Like no matter who we play. I mean, the Washington Wizards could come to town. If we lose by 3, it's like, well, what happened? So
Well, I tweeted this or posted it on X, whatever you want to call it these days, earlier this afternoon or sometime today on Sunday. There was a post, and I know we've talked about this on here, but there was a post of somebody who was tweeting at Danny White and was, let's see how loud Auburn Arena is. Like, we could have that if we move the students around. And they make it sound the folks that complain about they see these games at Auburn and Duke and these smaller, more friendly confine type venues, and they equate that with to me it makes it sound like, oh well, we don't have a great atmosphere, they're not very good at home. You look back, including this season, so the past 4 seasons, Tennessee's 55-4 at Thompson Bowling Arena. 55-4. That's great. That's great. That's one loss per season, and they're not lost this year. You could go back, and I don't count that season, of COVID. And Tennessee was, I think, 12-3 that year at home. There was nobody there, so really no one had a home court advantage. But I mean, take that out, but they're still 55-4 over the past, including this season, at Thompson Bowling Arena. 55-4. I don't know where that ranks as far as the rest of the nation, but I would have to think that's up there near the top with everybody else. So They're an elite basketball team at Thompson Bowling Arena, which will hopefully talk will help us out this next week with two tough games, and we'll talk about here in a moment. But I mean, they just don't lose in that building.
Yeah. Um, and not to sound like Big Montana, but being dominant at home doesn't necessarily help you when it matters.
Yeah, you text us that earlier today, and I'm going to save my comment for that for here in a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I just figured I'd throw it out there.
Yeah.
Not trying to sound like a Debbie Downer. It's phenomenal that we're dominant at home. But I don't know. I'm like everybody else. I watch the games. I pay attention. Kind of got to do it away from Knoxville every once in a while, which we're about to get into.
That's right. So we did win at home against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So then it was on to a game that's been circled on a lot of people's calendars, not just in Knoxville or Auburn, but around the conference. I mean, these are the two teams that were picked to be at the top or near the top of the conference this season. Tennessee and Auburn. Auburn's number one in the country right now. You can argue they're either them or Duke are the number one team in the country. I think it's right now Auburn. And then you have Tennessee, who's lost, coming into the game, had lost two games, a last second loss against Vanderbilt, and then a 30-point drubbing on the road at Florida. So, Tennessee's top five, top six team, whether you want to say it analytically or whatever. But this was a game that a lot of people had circled on their calendars. But you and I talked on this show and we kind of previewed the season a few weeks ago. I don't think this was a game you thought we would win. I definitely didn't think it. I saw the line come out a couple days before the game, or maybe it was Friday. I can't remember, but I think Auburn was 6.5, 7.5. I told a couple of people, I was like, take Auburn. I said, I'm not saying Tennessee's going to get blown out, but yeah, I think it's one of these games where Auburn leads by like 6, 8, 10 points most of the game and kind of edges out at the end. But it turned out to be anything but that. And I feel ashamed because it was one of the first times I went into a game in recent memory where I didn't have much faith in the Vols and kind of doubted them a little bit because I just didn't have a good vibe about this game. But give Tennessee credit. They mucked this game up so much and they drew Auburn into the style of game they wanted. And Auburn, give them credit, they found a way to win it. But Tennessee definitely didn't make it easy on them, and they had every chance in the world to win that game. And you can argue that there's two arguments. You can argue Tennessee lost it, or you can argue that a lot of bad breaks went their way and it cost them the game. And but regardless, this loss doesn't hurt Tennessee at all. I mean, they're not going to. I don't think that if they move in the polls, it might be one slot, maybe one or two slots. Lenardi said in bracketology, a win would possibly move Tennessee solidly into the one line, but a loss, they're not going anywhere. So, and Auburn wasn't going to drop anywhere either if they lost. But this game was a one possession game, came down to the wire. It was bad. I don't know how many. At one point, there was like 13 or 14 lead changes, 8 or 10 ties. Auburn would go up five, Tennessee would battle back and tie it and go up two or three, and then Auburn would go. I mean, it was just back and forth all night long. It was not the prettiest game to watch. I, as a basketball fan myself and a basketball person, I like to see the ball pushed up and down the court, a lot of shots taken, but this game was not that. This game was half court, grinded out offense, really tough physical defense, and Auburn made a play or two more than Tennessee, and they found a way to win. But any thoughts on the game? I know we talked and text this afternoon about it, but tell the viewers and the listeners, Harbin, what you thought about the Auburn game.
It was ugly. Uh, what people that pretend to know what they're talking about are going to tell you is that this was a heavyweight bout that was a defensive powerhouse, slugfest, whatever you want to call it. Neither team could make a shot. I mean, both teams are good defensive teams. Don't get me wrong. It was just an ugly basketball game. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay this game. It was awesome to watch, especially the last 12, 13 minutes, especially when teams started hitting shots. But Auburn went 3 of 20 from 3-point range. Tennessee went 4 of 22. Um, we shot 31.5% from the field. They shot 31. It was brutal. And a lot of that wasn't stifling defense, in my opinion, which I was working. I'm sure you actually got to sit down and watch the game, so you can probably give a little bit more insight than I can. But everything that I watched and heard, it was just it was ugly, and it was
Yeah.
ugly on both sides, which made it a great game. And it's 1 versus 6. Anytime you have single digit numbers next to both teams' names, it's going to feel like a better basketball game than what it actually is. But I mean, it's just kind of brutal basketball, and Tennessee's always going to defend. And that's why we're always going to have a chance against whoever we play. I mean, anybody. But the shooting woes on the road or away from Knoxville are going to have to stop. They just are. I mean, we were up 4 with what, a minute 15 left, minute 20, whatever it was. And at that point, it felt like we'd won, or not won, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
everybody felt pretty good about it. And then Auburn's last full offensive possession, when Broom, I believe it was Broom, he drove in for a layup and got it blocked, and he kicked it out to the corner. Guy was open. Everybody in the world knew that three was going in. That was when were they down 2 at the time.
Yes.
So they hit the three, go up 1. We don't score. We foul, and they go 1 of 2. And then they go up 53-51. And Ziegler actually gets a really good look in the corner. And when that
Yeah.
ball was in there, I thought it was going in. And it rims out, and they make a good play, throw it up in the air, dribble it out. Kudos to them. But I do need to say one thing. If people are defending the University of Tennessee online for officiating, it's bad.
Yeah. Yes.
And we are not the program, you and me, Section YY is not the program to blame officiating on a loss, and I'm not doing that. But when random people online are defending Tennessee, which if you listen to this show and if you're on the internet whatsoever, you know what I mean. If they're defending Tennessee, then it's an issue. And I'm not even saying that it was one sided. Like, the officiating in that game was awful. Both sides. It was just, I hate to see two teams as good as those, especially in the SEC where that's the only time we get to play in the regular season. That might be the only team we play. I mean, that might be the only time we play them all year. I hate to see it get decided by officiating. Even if we would have won on bad calls, I would say that. It's just infuriating. Like, in the play that everybody wants to talk about, and I'll talk about it, is the travel call on Okpara when he was handing the ball off to Ziegler. That was brutal. I mean, it was just a horrible call. He got tackled and was in the process of falling down. No foul. They call travel, and they end up getting a bucket out of it. Correct? Or they got
I believe they went down and scored. Yes.
yeah. that was kind of, and we were, I think we were up at the time, or it was tied. You're gonna have to help me out on that part. I was working.
That I don't. I think we were up two.
Yeah.
I think.
Either way, that was a turning point. At that point, you obviously the crowd's going wild, big momentum play. In my opinion, college basketball is the number one sport for momentum. It's just tough, you know. I mean, and we got a good amount of calls in our favor. There were bad calls, but it's just it's tough, especially when you're playing a team as good as Auburn. And in my opinion, they're a little bit better than us. I think, like you said, I'm gonna rattle off what you said. I think them and Duke are the best two teams in college basketball, and then it's everybody else. I think in my opinion, we're close to the top of the everybody else category.
Hmm.
But it's Duke and Auburn. It is. Um, and to be 100% honest with you, going into the game, I thought we were going to get boat raced. I did. I haven't seen enough from us away from Knoxville to think otherwise, and this is obviously the best team that we've played all year. So I'm pretty proud of how we fought. You know, it was oddly familiar to the Illinois game, which obviously we won that game, but it was extremely familiar to that game. You know, it was kind of grinded out back and forth. Just do what you can to stay within striking distance. And one of those games went our way, and one of them didn't. And it just is what it is. Um, Game doesn't kill us. It's what our third loss of the year.
Third.
Yeah, uh, we're fine. It sucks. I don't ever want to lose to Bruce Pearl. I don't ever want to lose a conference game. It's nothing extremely personal against him. I want to win every game, but you know, it's just one of those. It's just one of those things. But going forward, we got to shoot the ball better on the road. We have to, or I don't know. We're going to keep having the same conversation over and over because it's not going to get any easier in conference play.
No, it's not. It's not.
I mean,
Um,
both of our games this upcoming week are at home, but we still got Kentucky and Auburn, and we got a pissed off Kentucky team coming in on Tuesday night. By the way, they lost to Vanderbilt, so if
yeah.
you think that's going to be ho hum win by 12, then you're wrong.
So, real quick, so against Vandy on the road, we shot from the field 48%. At Texas, we shot 46%. And then this yesterday, it was what, 30 something percent. So we were way down from, let's see, 31.5%, 18% from 3-point range. Auburn was equally as bad. They shot 31% from the field, 15% from 3-point range. Um, so both teams were bad. I don't know. I hadn't felt like we've shot the ball that poorly on the road, except for Florida. I mean, obviously we didn't shoot the ball well there. Um, I hadn't and really paid attention, but I just hadn't thought that we had shot that poorly. I mean, last night in Florida was atrocious. Luckily, last night Auburn also shot the ball equally as atrocious as Tennessee did. Jordan Moore, just some thoughts from me real quick. Jordan Moore on Twitter, good follow, especially if you like statistics like I do. He's at Jordan Moore underscore 21. He had a couple of thoughts on the game, which I liked. Tennessee did exactly what they needed to do, drug Auburn into the mud, held Auburn to their lowest point total, points per possession, and 3-point percentage on the season. Auburn likes to push the ball up and down the court. Typical Bruce Pearl. They were not able to do that at all against Tennessee last night. He also made a note here. Tennessee led 51 to 47 with 2 minutes and 7 seconds to go. Tennessee's next few possessions were a missed free throw, a turnover, a missed field goal, missed field goal, missed field goal. So last five possessions they came up empty. So he made the argument, make one field goal out of those five possessions, Tennessee probably wins. He's probably right. Um, so I thought those were a couple good points that he made. He also posted that Tennessee has lost their last two SEC games by combined 3 points. Um, Talking about Tennessee's resume just a little bit, kind of here on the back end of the Auburn loss, it puts Tennessee at 17 and 3, 14 and 3 overall. The key wins that I've got are Illinois, Mississippi State, at Louisville, and a neutral site win over Baylor. Ken Palm's got us at number 6, net ranking of number 4. Mentioned Tennessee's home record of 11 and 0. They fell to 3 and 3 on the road now, 3 and 0 in neutral site games. This one kind of surprised me. Tennessee is 5 and 3 against quad 1 teams. That is the fourth most wins against quad 1 teams in the country. And Tennessee's going to have plenty of more opportunities to get more quad 1 wins over the next 2 months or a month and a half now. Well, a month or so, because that's all they're pretty much going to face unless they play like South Carolina, LSU, somebody in that range. But this week coming up, Tennessee's got two home games versus Kentucky Wildcats, like Harb mentioned on Tuesday night. Kentucky comes into the game 14 and 5, 3 and 3 overall, number 22 in Ken Palm, number 13 in the net ranking. BPI favors Tennessee 77% to win that game. And then next Saturday at high noon, the Florida Gators come to town for a rematch. Like we mentioned, Tennessee got just drilled down there in Gainesville a couple weeks ago. But Florida's 18 and 2, 5 and 2 in the conference, fifth in Ken Palm, fifth in the net rankings. BPI has Tennessee favored to win this game at 70.7%. But I think Tennessee needs to probably win both of these games this week, Harbin. Obviously, they need to protect their home court. I say this a lot every year, but I think this year more than ever, you got to win all your home games if you want a legit chance to win this conference. Which I don't know at this point that Tennessee does, but there's still a chance. There's still an opportunity with as tough as this conference is. Auburn could lose 4 or 5 games here. I know they're undefeated in conference play, but you just never know going on the road. And they almost lost to South Carolina a couple weeks ago. But I think it's vital for Tennessee to bounce back, beat Kentucky on Tuesday at home, which I think they will, and then return the favor to Florida next Saturday at home. I think that's going to be the tougher of the two matchups. Kentucky's not really playing all that well right now. I think they're kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. They're still a very good basketball team, but I think they're coming back down to earth just a tad here. But I think it's important that Tennessee go 2-0 this week. They've got to win if they have any thoughts or desires still to win the SEC or at least finish in the top 4. I think it's imperative they win these two games and hold serve at home because they've still got some tough games on the road coming up, and it's not going to get any easier.
No. And I was talking to a buddy of mine before the Auburn game, and I was saying that Tennessee needs to go 2 out of 3 in this stretch between at Auburn, Kentucky, and Florida coming up. And I was kind of assuming that we would lose at Auburn. So I was essentially saying, take care of business at home. But Kentucky just lost at Vanderbilt, and they lost our game before. I forgot who it was against. It may have been Alabama. I don't remember. But either way, that loss made me nervous because I looked at the same guy while he was at work, and I was like, do you really think Kentucky's going to lose 3 games in a row? And we had a little discussion over it. I don't know. I know we're going to have to score because they're probably going to score. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They don't play a whole lot of defense, so you make your shots, you're probably going to win, but you're going to have to defend your tail off. And Thompson Bolin's going to be rocking for that game, you know? And just like, even if we lose against Kentucky, it's still going to be rocking against Florida because these fans are hungry for a bounce back against Florida, especially with what happened in Gainesville. So I don't know. You just keep doing what you've been doing at home, and I think we're going to be fine. Truthfully, I do think we win both of these games, but you can't just walk into that game thinking that. You know, you're playing two very good basketball programs, and you're going to have to bring your A game to beat them. It just is what it is.
Yep.
There's no off time in the SEC. Your quote unquote breather for the last couple weeks is going to be Missouri a week from Tuesday, and they've lost what 3 games, 4 games.
And now they're ranked.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's your quote unquote breather.
Yeah.
You know, they
Really, your next true breather is in a couple Saturdays at Oklahoma. But is that really a breather? To me, no.
any road game in conference play is not a breather.
I
You
agree.
learned that with a Vanderbilt game.
In Texas, I mean, I know Texas was winless in the conference at the time, and they took us down to the wire. They've won three in a row since then. They're 3-4 in the conference now.
They did have a gauntlet to start
They
SEC.
did. They
Their first
did.
5 games was rough. I think it was us, Alabama,
Yep.
Auburn,
I,
Oklahoma. Yeah,
yeah.
either way, it was tough. But Texas is a good basketball program. I believe Vanderbilt's pretty damn good as well. Uh, like like we just mentioned, they knocked off Kentucky at home. Uh, didn't they? Didn't they beat Alabama as well? Or did they? Either way,
Yeah, I don't think they did.
they played them tight. They've got 3 overall losses. Their one out of conference loss is Drake. And when we looked at it a few weeks ago, Drake was undefeated, and Drake's a perennial NCAA tournament team.
Hmm.
Like they're just good, you know. I mean, there's no breathers. Even if you play South Carolina, Auburn learned that. Auburn had no business of winning that game against South Carolina, and they found a way of doing so.
I tweeted this. Maybe I don't can't remember if I text you all or not, but a couple of going back to Tennessee's resume. I mean, we're through 20 games. Tennessee's 17-3. You would look at that from the outside and say, "Man, that is really good." And then they're 4-3 in the conference. So, I mean, I think how many games did we lose last year? I think we were 15-3 in the conference last year. So we've already equaled that amount, but that was to be expected. Text you all earlier today and said, I thought that the conference champ in the regular season this year would have 4 to 6 losses. That still may happen. It's going to be, I don't foresee Auburn losing 6 games at this point. They could lose 3 or 4 though. But a couple teams to look back. We're looking at Tennessee's resume. Looking back, pay attention. I'm not saying these teams are going to make the big dance. I'm not saying they're going to win their tournament. But some wins Tennessee has over MTSU and Norfolk State may help them down the line and resume just a little because those two teams are at the top of their conference right now, um, and could win it and go to the big dance. And that's 2 games. I've heard a lot of people say, "Well, Tennessee's schedule early on wasn't very good," and we talked about it the last time we recorded. And I saw these teams on Saturday at different points. You've got Virginia in there who's not very good. You've got Miami in there who's really bad. And then you've got Syracuse who isn't any good. And that's 3 teams that perennially are usually pretty solid tournament basketball teams. They're not this year. They're anything but. That's kind of hurt Tennessee. But then they've got some mid majors that they've played that have ended up turning out to be pretty good basketball teams. And two of those are MTSU in Norfolk State. So when you're looking at Tennessee's resume, I did not put them on there as key wins because they're really not, but they could help Tennessee in their resume down the line. So just something to keep your eye on. But I think Tennessee's still in a really good spot. They're a solid 2 seed according to most bracketologists or all bracketologists. Still top 5 and 6 in all the analytics. You've got 5 quad 1 wins. They're undefeated at home, undefeated in neutral site games. And that was kind of where I was wanting to get to. And I know you texted earlier today and said, it's good to be dominant at home, but, they don't play home games in March. But I was like, well, they also don't play on the road in March either. And Tennessee's undefeated on neutral court games. So I think Tennessee's a pretty good neutral court basketball team, to be honest, or program. Not just saying this year, but I don't necessarily worry about that a whole lot. Now, if they played on the road, I would be a little more concerned, but we'll see over the next. They're going to have plenty of road games to work out their issues shooting the basketball. I know Chaz Lanier had a couple good shooting games in a row at Vandy and against Mississippi State, but he, along with everybody on the court on both teams, struggled to shoot the ball. Um, at Auburn last night. But I do want to call out. We're not going to have a hater and loser segment this week, but I do want to call out friend of the show, Josh Walker, who called Chaz Lanier a dud last night. He said he's been a dud. And I asked for an explanation, and he said he was supposed to replace Connect. No one ever said Chaz Lanier was supposed to replace Dalton Connect. And how is somebody a dud that is second in the SEC in scoring and leading the conference in 3-point field goal percentage? That's not a dud. I know he's not, and there's been more people than just him. I've seen just little rumblings of it. But there's a lot of like Chaz Lanier hate almost, and I tweeted it last night, and I don't get it, man. The guy's been a really good addition to this basketball team. He is not Dalton Connect. No one ever said he was going to be Dalton Connect. All people were doing was comparing numbers that he had to Dalton Connect, and some of the numbers earlier in the season were better than Dalton Connect at that same point in Connect's career last year. But um, I'm not worried about Lanier shooting the basketball. He'll find it. My motto is just keep shooting and they'll fall. The percentages say he's a good enough shooter that they'll end up falling. The one I worry about, Harbin, and I'll wrap this up, is I don't know what's happened to him. He's still rebounding the ball well, playing pretty good defense, but Igor Milicic, he cannot throw it in the ocean. Earlier in the season, that dude was kind of automatic.
Yeah.
He can't throw it in the ocean, and his shots last night, and again, he wasn't the only one, but his shots last night, you could tell out of his hand weren't going to be close. And I don't know if he's injured. I don't know. He just does not look the same on the offensive end that he did pre-conference. I know he started struggling there right before conference play, but it's been going on a solid almost 2 months now that he can't shoot the basketball.
Well, I think with Igor and even Lanier, and you saw it with Jordan Gainey last year, or is this his second year or third year with us?
Second, I believe.
Yeah. Either way, you look at him, and you can't look at Connect because he was an anomaly. He's one of one. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of Rick Barnes players for Tennessee, at least. But you look at all of these guys, and the ones that come in their first year, they struggle from the field. And I think a lot of that is their transfers, and they went from being the number one option and getting 20 shots a game to being, I wouldn't necessarily say role players, but at least sharing the load offensively to getting 8 to 12 to even just 15 shots a game. And it's a hard adjustment, you know? And let's just shoot the elephant in the room. I mean, the talent level's different. You know, I mean, Igor was a career 40% 3-point shooter. Where was he at Was he at Charlotte?
Charlotte, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're not playing Auburn, Kentucky, and Florida 3 game stretches when you play at Charlotte.
No.
You know, I think Igor's a hell of a player, and I think he's done a lot for us. I'm still very high on that young man. I really like his game, but the shots are going to fall eventually, especially when you got a shooter. And the thing that I love about Igor specifically is even if he goes 2 for 11 from the field, he's still going to get 7 to 11 rebounds. He's still going to dish out 2 or 3 assists. He's going to get a block. He may get a steal. He's going to defend his ass off regardless if he doesn't get a stat on the defensive side. He's still going to make winning plays for you, even if the shots aren't falling. It's kind of the same thing with Gainey last year. It was kind of frustrating with him, but he's still going to open up stuff for everybody else because he's going to draw so much attention. And obviously, that's the same thing with Lanier. Lanier is kind of in between those guys and Connect last year as far as defensive attention goes. Lanier could be 0 for 15, and opposing defenses are still going to guard him like he has 28. So it's
Yeah.
still gonna open up things for everybody. It's just a matter if we can make shots as a team. And Igor has struggled since around Christmas shooting the ball, and so has Lanier outside of a couple games. But really, the whole team has. So I think it's a combo of adjusting to their role, which we're over half the way through the season. So they're obviously adjusted to the role. Don't get me wrong, but it's still a hard adjustment. They went from 4 years from being the man to all of a sudden, nah, are you? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they're human and they're also college kids. We love to forget that every once in a while, but they're still very, very good basketball players. And when it matters, I still trust these guys. Um, all of them, really. But they may not all click on the same night. But with a defense as good as we have, we don't need all of them to be clicking on the same night. We don't have to score 95 like Kentucky does. So if we hold, for example, Missouri to 62 and we score 65 and Igor gets hot and scores 25 and nobody else makes a shot, then Igor's the man and nobody cares. We get a win and we move on to the next game. It's surviving advance in college basketball, especially going into February like we're about to be. So
yeah.
I'm not too worried about the individuals. I'm just kind of more worried about the group as a whole. Because we're starting to get in these lulls like we've bitched about with Rick Barnes teams for a few years now. But eventually, with as much talent as we have, the shots are going to fall. And even if they don't fall as much as we want to, our defense is good enough to where the offense is going to be enough, even if it's average. That's the way I look at it.
Yep. Well, they got a chance to bounce back here in just a day or two against the Wildcats at Thompson Bowling Arena. And like I said, they need to take care of business there and move on and get a little retribution against the Gators on Saturday. So we'll be watching that this week. Two big games, both at Thompson Bowling Arena at the Food City Center. We just call it TBA. But another wild weekend of SEC basketball has come and gone, and it's this has been the most intense SEC basketball season I can ever remember. Now, I've been watching Tennessee basketball for a long, long time, and you know, me growing up, Tennessee was not very good at basketball. I grew up with, um, I remember the first coach I remember was Wade Houston, and they were awful, except for Allen Houston. And then we had Kevin O'Neal, and it got a tick better, but it still wasn't very good. And then Jerry Green came in, and things changed. Some mostly for the better, but some not for the better with him. But seemed like after that, we had Buzz Peterson, and he was okay. And then when Bruce came in, everything for the most part changed. But as a whole, the Southeastern Conference was not very good during those. Even if Tennessee was good, the conference was not great. You had Kentucky, who was always good. Florida was good. Alabama, Mississippi State would have some runs here or there. South Carolina under Eddie Fogler would have some flashes in the pan, but the rest of the conference was pretty bad. I mean, Arkansas after Nolan Richardson left, it wasn't really all that great. But there for a while, it was Tennessee, Florida, and Kentucky, and that was about it in this conference. And now, top to bottom, even the teams at the bottom. I mean, you look at South Carolina. We talked about them. They're 0-7 in conference play. And they've had a bunch of like nail biter losses, heartbreakers, and they beat Clemson earlier in the season, non-conference. They can't win a game in this conference, but they're really like, I would expect Tennessee to beat them when they play them, but I'm not going to go in that game expecting Tennessee to win by 20, 25 points and blow them away. I hope they do. But this conference, top to bottom, is brutal right now. I mean, just the depth from top to bottom. I haven't looked at bracketology lately to see how many teams they've got projected in it, but I'm assuming it's still around 12. I know at one point it was 13, and it might creep back up to 13 if Texas can keep winning. Which for Tennessee's sake, I hope they do because that makes our win in Austin look a whole lot better. But there's a couple teams Tennessee needs to keep winning: Texas and Baylor. Baylor's outside the top 25 right now, but they're still, I think, in the top 30 in all the analytics. They're 13-6, kind of toward the top of the Big 12, kind of mid pack. They need to keep winning. And Louisville's been a little bit of a surprise outside of the conference. Tennessee won that game earlier in the season and dominated Louisville, but Louisville, last I looked, they're 8-1 in the ACC. I think ACC is not very good, but I think they're up there, right there, nipping on Duke's heels. So that's a team I did not expect to be 8-1 in their conference at this point. But we'll see. Harb, big week for the Vols. Hopefully they go 2-0, and we come back next week and talk about a couple W's. There's no NFL next Sunday. Both conference championship games were played today. Eagles and unfortunately the Kansas City Chiefs advanced to the Super Bowl. They'll be 2 weeks off or a week off, so the Super Bowl's in 2 weeks. But next week there's a little breather before the big game. I know Harb and I aren't too overly excited about that Super Bowl game, but it is the Super Bowl. Um, and let's see, in 3 weeks, NASCAR's back, Daytona 500. And other than that, I don't know. There's not much going on right now except college basketball. So uh, we'll try to get you through it as best we can. I've got a couple home games at Carter this week, Harbin. The Hornets, the men. They're a pretty good team. I'm telling y'all, if you're in the area, if you're listening to this and you're a basketball fan, come out and watch the Hornets at home sometime. They're pretty good. They've lost, I think, 6 games this year, and I think they've only lost one district game, so they've got a couple home games this week. But they're good. They've tallied off a bunch of wins in a row here over the past few weeks. So watch out for the Hornets. Come out and support them boys, Harb.
Absolutely. Shout out to the running Hornets. Are they running still?
Uh, Sometimes
Yeah.
they do run a little.
The jogging Hornets.
The jogging, yeah.
Yeah, the jogging
They
ones.
they don't. They're definitely not running system, but they do push the ball up and down the court every now and then. but we'll see. Um, I think they can make a run here in late February. We'll see.
Good.
Got to beat Fulton. They got to find a way to beat Fulton.
Is are the districts and regions the same as they are in football? Or are they a little different?
They're a little different. Carter's district in the spring and winter sports consists of obviously Carter, and you've got Cott County, Gibbs, Seymour, Northview, and Fulton. And it's actually going to change going into next academic year. I think Gibbs rotates to a different district opposite of Carter, and I can't remember. I think Austin East rolls in, I think, but region opposite region is Halls, Anderson County, Clinton, maybe Scott County. I'm trying to think of those. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but it's kind of similar to what it was a few years ago. But it's a couple teams rotating in and out. But Anderson County's got a good team. They're a pretty good ball team. They took them and Carter went down to the wire a couple weeks ago at Jim Williams Gymnasium. Carter came out on top, but pretty good team. Come out and watch them. And if you come out to the gym to watch the Hornets play, you can watch Chad Grubb keep the score. He runs the scoreboard, Harbin.
Well, the problem is, if I come, I won't watch too much of the action. I'll just be on Grub Watch.
That's entertaining in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would pay the price of admission just to watch Chad Grubb for 2 hours. So
Shout out Chad Grubb. He does a great job with it.
good. The reason I asked about the region was obviously I work in Sevierville, so I hear a lot about Sevier County high school athletics, and I know that their basketball program's pretty darn good this year. So I didn't know if they were.
I believe they are 4A, Carter's 3A. So they're different classification.
So there's four in spring and winter sports now.
They increased it a couple, 3 years ago to four divisions.
Good lord, I can't keep up anymore. I just know in
It's
high school and everything
all
besides.
about that, Harbin.
Oh,
It's
I'm sure.
more championships to play, more money to bring in.
Yeah, there's the public-private split. They went from
Mhm.
3 to 4 classifications and everything but football. I can't keep up anymore.
It changes. They've changed the region and district classification so much that my uncle grew up here and he was Cott County, and I was telling him what region and district Cott County was in, and he was like, "What in the world?" Like when he grew up, it was Jeff County, Greenville, Elizabethton, those kind of schools. And now Cott County's with Carter, Northview, Seymour, Gibbs, serious Fulton. Like that's so foreign to, him and others. And I mean, you think like when I was in high school, we had a four-team district: Carter, AE, Fulton, and Gibbs. And then my senior year, we added in Seymour and Alcoa, and now both of those rotated out. One of them's back in. I mean, it just constantly moves around. There's no continuity, and Carter's main rival Gibbs is moving out again next year, even though they'll be in the region opposite of Carter. It's just constant. It's hard to keep up with unless you're like directly involved with it.
See,
So
when I was in high school, which was roughly 10 years after you, the district for sports was Carter, Fulton, AE, Gibbs, Union County,
yeah.
Pigeon Forge, and GP.
And it stayed like that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they added that. They
It
added that,
changed. It changed like the year after I graduated,
and
or
then
maybe my senior year,
when
actually.
they added in that fourth classification, it really threw everything out the window because you had like Gatlinburg staying in 2A, AE staying in 2A, Pigeon Forge staying in 2A, and Carter was in 3A, and so it just threw everything out of whack from that. That district had the same teams in it for a long time that you just mentioned, and it's kind of there's a lot of people kind of sad to see it go because there was a bunch of rivalries started up out of that. Carter and Union County had a rivalry, obviously Carter and Gibbs, and there was uh, uh, Pigeon or sorry, Gibbs and Union County had a little thing going there for a while. So there was some rivalries came out of that no longer are really around. So, anyways, yeah, if you're bored on Tuesday or Thursday this week, come to the Jim Williams Gymnasium and check out the Hornets. We try to put on a good atmosphere for the fans.
The biggest rivalry that I miss is Carter and AE because a lot of those because we went to middle school with a lot of those guys that
Mhm.
went to AE. So obviously, when Carter and AE played each other in certain sports, there was a lot of familiarity there.
Yeah.
So
It was the same with us. I mean, there was a couple people we knew really well that went to AE, but we went to middle school with them. So it was just it's maybe that'll start back up again because they'll be back in the district for at least 3 years together. So, all right, Harb, it's late on a Sunday night. I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Any parting words before we exit for the week?
now, outside of the fact that I'm rooting for a meteor strike in the Super Bowl, but my hatred for the Philadelphia Eagles is so strong that I would rather see the Chiefs three-peat than see Larry the Cucumber, aka Jalen Hurts, hold up a Lombardi Trophy.
I
So
saw a tweet earlier today, and it said if the Buffalo Bills and Washington win, they should both wear the jerseys that they wore. I don't remember the Super Bowl, but they played in one of those four losses in a row that Buffalo suffered. They played the Redskins one year in the Super Bowl, but I I've got a picture I'll post in the next couple weeks. It's my favorite I'm not going to spoil it, but it's my favorite. I've been going back and like reading up on this past Super Bowls, and one of them that I saw, it was played at the LA Coliseum, but it was the Redskins and the Dolphins, and the uniform matchup was great. The Dolphins were in all white, those 70s uniforms. The Redskins had the gold pants, the red tops, the big Redskin logo, and it was so awesome. It was so cool. I'll post that. I'll probably put it in next week's episode too. But yeah, they played a couple. The Redskins and Dolphins played a couple times in the Super Bowl, and the uniform matchup was fantastic. Um, I don't know if the Eagles wore their throwbacks in this Super Bowl. The Chiefs and Eagles uniforms would be great. I'm not a huge fan of the Eagles' current uniforms, but all about the uniform. I don't know. I think the Eagles will probably be the home team in this game. I think because I think the Chiefs were the AFC was home team last year. I think
does that matter?
it doesn't. Just matters what uniform they'll wear,
Well, I
what
mean,
color jersey.
if we're going off of logic, with which the NFL normally doesn't, the Chiefs are the AFC one seed, and the Eagles were the NFC two seed. So
I think they
logic,
alternate it. Let's see. Before
that's,
we go, I'm going to look this up, or it'll give me a brain freeze.
if you're correct, that's so stupid.
What Super Bowl is this, Harbin? 59?
This is 59, correct?
And who is the home team for Super Bowl 59? The Philadelphia Eagles are home team.
So they'll be wearing.
They're whatever kind of shade green that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they alternate it back and forth um, each year between conferences. Because the year that the Titans played in Atlanta, they were the home team, but obviously didn't have near as good as record or seed as the then St. Louis Rams. The Rams wore their road uniforms. Let's see. It doesn't say on here. Well, anyways, the Eagles are your home team in the Super Bowl So they will probably be wearing their home jerseys. Chiefs will probably be wearing white tops, red pants, I would assume. I thought the uniform matchup, Chiefs and Bills, was fantastic this afternoon.
Yeah, solid.
Solid, two solid uniforms right there. So, all right, Harbin, that's all I've got. I'm gonna go edit this thing and get it out to the people. They've been waiting for 2 weeks for it.
Yeah, give the people what they want.
Give the people, we're giving, and I give it to you, the people. Again, thank you to Andrew's Physical Therapy for partnering with us. We do appreciate it. Go see those, go see those folks if you need any rehabilitation, physical, not mental. And well, maybe mental. Mike might be able to help you. I don't know that Adam can, but Mike can.
I don't know if you got Adam's Snapchat earlier, but Mike was at the Chiefs
Yes,
game.
he was.
Mike was that. So shout out Mike Andrews. He was at the AFC Championship game.
Right. It looked like he was on the front row.
Yeah. Great seats. I would hate to think what he paid for it, but maybe with this Huawei partnership, that's how he got it.
He's got that new building over there on Asheville Highway. Things must be going well.
You never know.
Never know where you might see Mike. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Remember, you can find us on our YouTube channel. Be sure to go on there, like, subscribe, comment, share, and help out that algorithm. You can also find us if you don't want to watch and you're driving around and want to listen. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or just go online and search Section YY8 Podcast, and you'll find us. And remember to give us a thumbs up on all of those. Appreciate you guys listening. Big week for Tennessee basketball coming up. We'll be back next week to recap it all. For Austin Harbin, I am Negative Niece, and you've been listening to the Section YY8 podcast.